We're in the year of the metal rat, 2020. At the end of June, we've seen part 1 of 2020, and now we're going into the unknown. You recall in my last clips from last year, 2019, we said 2020 would be the year of the absurd. So, in this year of the metal rat 2020, I had discussed with you contraction of energy, contraction of economics, and I said economy in the bottom. I did not see the virus coming, but we talked together about organized anarchy, militaristic side of anarchic movements, and this has all reached us. We have the contraction of energy, that's clear, with Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn. The 500-year alignment is very, very tough. We talked about this. It will be tough, difficult times. We need to be self-sufficient. We must attempt to live a self-sustained existence. The radiant zones are key to our success from now on in 2020. In this discussion, I'm going to go through many, many subjects, from economics to the virus, to China, to Europe, to the United States, the election ahead. So many subjects. We had said last time, the key to the future, before I knew about the virus, is decentralization. Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, the sign of the common man, surely talks to us about the group, the entire humanity. How are we going to create new technologies that benefit us while others are developing technologies to control us? This is all part of Aquarius, by the way. Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius has an enormous upside, particularly the restart of the cycle, which is a 20-year cycle. The last time was from 2000 to 2020, and now we're going from 2020 to 2040. And we're starting this cycle in Aquarius, right on winter solstice in a half a year, 20 December 2020. Jupiter and Saturn together in tandem move into Aquarius. And this is the moment where I would expect a complete opening of technology, of knowing, right? Aquarius is keyword, I know. And where we are going to open up new platforms, possibly a new internet, possibly a different 5G. We understand that the military-industrial complex, the United States military, has these technologies, even much better technologies, more advanced than the Chinese Huawei 5G. These technologies over time need to be handed over and commercialized via entrepreneurship. This is the big advantage that we're going into, and that can last from 2021 to 23, because Saturn will take about 2.5 years in the sign, while Jupiter moves then on into Pisces. So then the next marker is Jupiter-Neptune in Pisces, while Saturn is still in Aquarius, 21, 22, 23, and eventually Saturn passing Neptune in 2025 on the cusp. Pisces, Aries, that's the alpha omega point of the zodiac. 2024 to 26 is that phase. So when Saturn and Neptune come together, we discussed it already, it's when the planet that gives form and structure meets in line of the planet that rules the seas, the oil, illusions, filmmaking, and all imagination and inspiration. So these next 5 years, 2020, 2025, is a key moment for mankind, for us, humanity in Aquarius and Pisces, to find new ways. We will discuss that this virus actually has its upsides, you know. Many people see this as a catastrophe, but we must always look for the opportunity within the risky situation. The Zen monk, 100 years ago, he was a Buddhist in China, made a prophecy specific for this year 2020, where he spoke about the plague, that's the virus, followed by floods, fire and locusts. And we have seen all these points, so we've checked through a half a year of 2020 to come almost to the fulfillment of this Zen monk's prophecy. We are now in some area that I would term a managed decline, like a controlled demolition, where society will face a whole new outlook and a changed destiny. This is very big. And I had said this is an alignment, Pluto, Jupiter, which of course aggrandizes and enhances everything, and which will give us a new key to a new future. We're clearly now on the threshold of going into a new destiny of humanity, and that is always a 500-year cycle, more or less, 497 years to be precise. And we're now sailing through this eye of the needle that I discussed with you, which is a phase of 1 year. It began exactly on 11 January 2020. That was exactly the date at which the Chinese Communist Party was actually disinforming the World Health Organization, and it is exactly in those days, 11, 12 January, that they began systematically to destroy all the evidence. They ordered their labs, all the labs, military labs, P4 lab, Wuhan lab, to basically be done with anything to do with this virus, exactly to the day at the moment where Saturn, that holds people accountable, passes Pluto. Pluto is the destroyer. It destroys, reconstructs. It's deconstruction, reconstruction. And then as Jupiter reached Pluto, that was 2 months later, by early April, we had these overblown huge numbers, and the entire operation was to some degree quite exaggerated. So, before we continue with the next few segments, I would like to give credit to a number of people that I'm studying and watching their work. First of all, there is General Robert Spalding. He was a former US Air Force pilot. He wrote a book called Stealth War. Right at the end of 2019 it was published. And I would also like to mention Dr. Luttwak, who taught Stephen K. Bannon, and of course Mr. Bannon, who was top strategist for President Trump, and his war room team with Jason Miller and Jack Maxey. Also Joshua Phillips from Crossroads, Epoch Times, Simon Gao, Jennifer Zheng, and New Tang Dynasty, Tiffany Meyer. There are so many sources, so many really well-informed people who are putting out informations that we would otherwise never get. There is a very important classic book that was published 24 years ago called Unrestricted Warfare. It was written by two former PLA, People's Liberation Army colonels, those are Chinese army colonels, who wrote their book called Unrestricted Warfare, in which they very clearly showed step by step how China was going to deploy its strategy. And everything that we're seeing happening now is going according to this book, Unrestricted Warfare. So if we want to know what's going on in China and understand what the PLA and the Chinese Communist Party are planning and doing, we should read Unrestricted Warfare as well as Stealth War. I also look at Asia Times and other journals, outlets, to understand what can we hear from inside of China to understand what they're thinking, what they want to do, what the people would like to do. And we see with the astrology, we're coming into this moment, I had said, Eye of Needle, lasting 1 year from January 11th to more or less solstice, 21st of December 2020. So that's a whole year, what I call Eye of Needle, with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Pluto, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. So we have these 3 times 4 different checkpoints, altogether about 8 contact points over the year. And this mirrors the situation of 2020, the metal rat year. So these are the subjects we're going to go into in a few segments and study point by point, calmly, what's actually on the plate. And the virus is a trigger to the situation, but it's not the cause. We have to make a clear distinction between causation and correlation. Things correlate in astrology, but the astrology doesn't cause the human activity.